Happy Easter, everybody. So we get to tell you guys a story today. And we get to tell you, that's something I love to do. That's something Wes loves to do. Do you guys like rescue stories? Like hero stories? Well, you like rescue stories, Shep? I know you do. Well, this is like the greatest rescue story in the whole history of the world. The greatest one ever. Okay? So awesome that the rescuer saved the world. It saved us. So it's the coolest. So Jesus, before we start reading, Jesus was God's rescuer. Jesus came to earth in such a way, it was God's way of saying, I'm going to put on eyes so I can look at you. And I'm going to put on hands so I can put my hand around you and I can hug you. And I can put my hand on you and I can pray for you. And I'm going to put on ears so I can listen to you when you're worried or you're scared or you have something really important to say. I'm going to put on all those things so I can come and be just with you, God with you, so I can hang out with you and love you, like crazy love you. And that's what Jesus did. He came, and that's what God did with Jesus. He came so he could do all of those things, so he could put his hands on people, and when they were sick, they would get better. And when they were scared or they were worried, they could tell him and he would hear them and he could take that away. And he would make them feel, just love them, love them, love them. But the thing was, in this rescue plan, people didn't get it. They didn't understand him. They didn't understand him. We didn't understand him. But that was part of his plan too. And so he came to save us. What happened was, when he came to save us, the biggest part of saving us, and in the Bible it says this, that there's no greater love, and he wanted to tell us how much he loved us, that there's no greater love that a person would die for his friends. So he came and loved us so much that he came to die for us. And he came, and when he died, he took all those things, all the fears and worries that we have, and sickness, all the things that separate him from his love for us, separate us from his love for us. He came, and when he died, he took all those things onto him. So I'm going to read you that part, and then Wes gets to read you the rescue hero awesome part, okay? So I'm going to read you the first part about the dying when we didn't understand, and then Wes is going to read the second part, okay? My part's called The Sun Stopped Shining. So you're a king, are you? The Roman soldiers jeered. Then you'll need a crown and a robe. They gave Jesus a crown, but it was made of thorns. And they put a purple robe on him and pretended to bow down to him. Your Majesty, they said. Then they whipped him and they spat on him. They didn't understand that he was the Prince of Life, the King of heaven and earth, who'd come as the great rescuer. The soldiers made him a sign, our King, and they nailed it to a wooden cross. They walked up a hill outside the city. Jesus carried the cross on his back. Jesus had never done anything wrong, but they were going to kill him the way that criminals were killed. See the picture? They nailed Jesus to the cross. Father, forgive them, Jesus gasped. They don't understand what they're doing. You say you've come to rescue us, the people shouted, but you can't even rescue yourself. But they were wrong. Jesus could have rescued himself. He could have called an entire army of angels and they would have flown to his side if he called for them. If you really were the Son of God, you could just climb down off that cross, they said. And of course, they were right. Jesus could have climbed down. Actually, he could have just said one word and made it all stop, like when he healed a little girl, or when he made a storm calm down, or when he fed 5,000 people. But Jesus didn't do that. He stayed on the cross. See, they didn't understand. It wasn't the nails that kept Jesus there. It was how much he loved us. Papa, Jesus cried, frantically searching the sky. Papa, where are you? Don't leave me. And for the first time and the last, when he spoke, nothing happened. Just a horrible, endless silence. God didn't answer. He turned away. Tears rolled down Jesus' face, the face of the one who would wipe away every tear from every single eye. There's the picture. Even though it was midday, a dreadful darkness covered the face of the world. The sun could not shine. The earth trembled and quaked. The great mountains shook. Rocks split in two until it seemed that the whole world would break, that creation itself would tear apart. The full force of the storm of God's anger of sin was coming down on his own Son instead of his people. It was the only way God could destroy sin and not destroy his children whose hearts were filled with sin. Then Jesus shouted in a loud voice, "It's finished." And it was. He had done it. Jesus had rescued the whole world. "Father," Jesus cried, "I give you my life." And with a great sigh, he let himself die because he loved us so much. Strange clouds and shadows filled the sky, purple, orange, black, like a bruise. Jesus' friends gently carried Jesus. They laid Jesus in a new tomb carved out of rock. How could Jesus die? What had gone wrong? What did it mean? They didn't know anything anymore, except they did know their hearts were breaking. "That's the end of Jesus," the leaders said. But just to be sure, they sent strong soldiers to guard the tomb, and they put a huge stone in front of the door to the tomb so that no one could get in or out. But a surprise is coming.
God's wonderful surprise. Jesus' friends were sad. They would never see their best friend again. How could this happen? Wasn't Jesus the rescuer? The king God had promised? It wasn't supposed to end like this. But whoever said anything about the end? Just before sunrise on the third day, God sent an earthquake and an angel from heaven. When the guards saw the angel, they fell down with fright. The angel rolled the huge stone away, sat on top of it, and waited. At the first glimmer of dawn, Mary Magdalene and other women headed to the tomb to wash Jesus' body. The early morning sun slanted through the ancient olive trees, drops of dew glittering on the leaves and grasses, little tears everywhere. The friends walked quietly along the hilly path through the olive groves until they reached the tomb, and immediately they noticed something odd. It was wide open. They peered through the opening into the dark tomb. But wait. Jesus' body was gone. And something else. A shining man was there with clothes made from lightning. "Don't be scared," the angel said, but they couldn't help it and screamed anyway. The angel asked them, "What are you doing here? This is a tomb, and tombs are for dead people." The women couldn't speak. "Jesus isn't dead anymore," he said. "He is alive again." And their hearts leapt, and the angel laughed with such gladness that they felt for a moment as if they had woken from a nightmare. The other women rushed home, but Mary stayed behind. How could this be true? Jesus was definitely dead, so how could he be alive? Just then Mary heard someone else in the garden. Perhaps it is the gardener. she thought. I bet he'll know where Jesus' body is. I don't know where Jesus is, Mary said urgently. I can't find him. But it was all right. Jesus knew where she was, and he had found her. Mary. Only one person said her name like that. She could hear her heart thumping. She turned around. She could just make out a figure. She shaded her eyes to see and thought she was dreaming. But she wasn't dreaming. She was seeing. Oh, Jesus. Mary fell to the ground, and sudden tears filled her eyes, and great sobs shook her whole body. And all she wanted in that moment was to cling to Jesus and never let him go. You will be able to hold on to me later, Mary, Jesus said gently, and always be close to me. But now, go and tell the others, I am alive. Mary ran and ran all the way into the city. She had never run so far or fast in all her life. She felt she could run forever. She didn't even feel like her feet touched the ground. The sun seemed to be dancing and gleaming and bounding across the sky, racing with her and shining brighter than she could ever remember. And it seemed to her that morning as she ran, almost as if the whole world had been made anew, almost as if the whole world were singing for joy. The trees, the tiny sounds in the grass, the birds, her heart. Was God really making everything sad come untrue? Was he really making even death come untrue? She couldn't wait to tell Jesus' friends. They won't believe it, she laughed. She was right, of course. They didn't. Jesus' friends were afraid, so they were hiding in an upstairs room with the door bolted shut. But that didn't stop Jesus. He walked straight through the wall. It's a ghost! Thomas screamed and hid under the table. But it wasn't a ghost. I'm hungry, said Jesus. Was for lunch. Peter gave him a fish. They all hung back and watched him eat. This can't be, they're telling themselves. It's impossible. This is not really happening. But it was right in front of their eyes. Delicious. Jesus wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and grinned. Can a ghost do that? And he winked. I'm really here, Jesus said, and he really was. Peter's heart leapt with joy, and he fell into Jesus' arms, hugging and kissing him. And the others followed. They felt their hearts would burst from happiness. The friends ate together and chatted happily, and every now and then they would just gaze at Jesus and have to touch him to make sure they weren't dreaming. Jesus had a real body, but this body was better. It had come through death and couldn't get sick or be killed ever again. This body would live forever. Jesus had come back with a brand new body. Not only were sad things coming untrue, the friends realized, they were becoming new again. Was God going to make everything new? Jesus said, I am the Savior and the rescue of the world. And they knew, because he couldn't stay dead, because Jesus had come alive again, that somehow everything would be all right.
So, some people, it's Easter, right? Yes, Easter. Great. That's the best rescue story ever. So, some of you probably woke up this morning and you maybe had like baskets with candy in the house that the Easter bunny came. Some of you maybe not. But really want to think about, like, with Easter, what are we celebrating? Why is this day so amazing? When we think about the great rescue plan. Do you think you know? You think you know? Okay, so here's what we want you to do. Yeah. Wes is going to pair you guys up, and here's what we want you to do.
All right, Shep, who's sitting next to you? Who do you know that sits next to you? Okay, Molly's your partner. I want you to whisper, you and Molly talk to each other and figure out, why do we celebrate Easter? Mariana, who's sitting next to you? Who do you know behind you? You talk to her and figure out why we celebrate Easter. Okay? Micaiah, talk to Caleb. Figure out why we celebrate Easter. What's your name? What? Drew? You join with the two boys behind you. And what's your name? Ruby? Oh, what a pretty name. And is that your sister? What's her name? 2 Mollies? Okay, then you and Molly talk and figure out why we celebrate Easter. And when you think you know, raise your hand. Caleb, do you know? Oh, Shepherd? Oh, Ruby? Yeah. Mariana? Awesome. Okay, you have one assignment before you can go sit back down. Okay? You two. Go find somebody who's sitting in the very back row and tell them what you just said. Hop up. Go find somebody in the very back row and tell them why we celebrate Easter. Molly and Shepherd, go find somebody over there way in the back and tell them what you discovered. All right, Ruby and Molly, you go find somebody over here in the front and tell them why we celebrate Easter. Now you boys, go find somebody in the middle of the group and tell them why.